All right, so we are joined by Velma Jackson, 2014 alumni, member of the Velma Jackson Hall of Fame, Kalaishi Johnson. We are so glad to have you today. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson for our college career readiness class, and we're recording this for our friends at Madison Central, Germantown, Ridgeland, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you again for taking some time out of your busy schedule today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we're glad to have you. Now, before we get into your current career and some of the things that you do, take us back to your high school experience. So, you graduated Velma Jackson 2014, and then went to Mississippi College to get your undergrad in counseling. So tell us about your high school experience and then your experience at Mississippi College.
Okay, so high school experience. I did. So I kind of stayed busy. I did the National Honor Society. I did I don't know what they call it now. They might not even have it. But it was like this teen coalition thing we did against drugs and stuff. And so we went out and did stuff with that. I did Beta Club. I was a cheerleader. Yeah. So did my honors classes or whatever. Yeah. So pretty, I guess, normal stuff. But yeah, that was high school. And then actually I didn't go straight to Mississippi College. So I went to Hines first because you got muted.
I got buzzed by the office. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I went to Hines first because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so that was kind of my way of being whatever I would have to spend, I would be able to kind of save before I figured out what I actually wanted to do. And it was at Hines that I figured out that I wanted to do psychology. And so I worked as a camp counselor in Texas for 2 summers.
Wow.
And I loved it. And so I was like, man, this is really awesome. And so I took a test or whatever to figure out kind of what career you want to go into. And psychology was top for me. And it was religion and spirituality. And so I was like, well, I'm close to Mississippi College. I had some friends at Mississippi College. And I was like, okay, it's close to my church that I started going to. And I was like, I'll go to Mississippi College. And so I transferred there. And honestly, I didn't realize this to begin with, but it was the best route that I could have taken, because when I went to Hines, I got the Phi Theta Kappa scholarship that ended up paying for me to go to MC. So I had 3 different scholarships, well, 2 scholarships and then a grant built on that. And so I went to school for free. Technically got paid to go to school. And so it was really, really great. I didn't know that this was all going to kind of come into play, but it did. And so I wasn't active at the schools per se at Hines and Mississippi College, but I was active through my church. So my church did things where they went out and served on campus. And so that's kind of how I got to know other students and be involved like that.
Well, that's awesome. And I'm glad you mentioned Phi Theta Kappa, because we've heard Hines and Holmes Community College talk about that, as well as we had Mississippi College in the fall talk about how they really work with the junior college transfers coming to MC, because a lot of people say, I'm interested in Mississippi College. I don't know if I can afford it, but there are all kinds of avenues that you will not have to take out a loan to get to go there. And Phi Theta Kappa coming from Hines, they have a great relationship with MC.
Yeah. And I haven't fully looked all the way into this, but someone at my church was kind of telling me that Mississippi College now has a scholarship where people can go get their tuition free at the school. You have to pay for some other stuff, but if you are in the state of Mississippi, a resident, then you can go. They pay for certain amounts of stuff. And so I was like, that's really great too, because it is a little bit more expensive. But with that really helps out.
Yeah, and I forgot all about that. That is true. But the one thing about Mississippi College is that it's a smaller school. So especially coming from Velma Jackson, if you're used to a small class, it's tough to adjust when you go to, and I know your brother's doing great at Mississippi State, but everybody can adjust to a large, big setting of thousands of people as easy as it can the smaller class size at a Mississippi college.
Yes. And I would definitely say, like, you have to know yourself. Like, you really need to know, like, how you interact with people. There are some people where that is great. Like, they can go, they can thrive, they can actually get work done. And then there's some people where it's like that big setting is not for them. Like, I was a person where it's like I needed a small setting. I like being able to personally know my teachers, to kind of ask them like, hey, I need help with this, or I need an extension here. And so that was really good for me, because it helped me to be seen instead of just kind of like a name on the roster.
Yeah, and another thing too, and we had a guest earlier this semester talk about her college decision was based on being able to live at home. So
Yeah.
Mississippi College, you want to save some money, you don't want to pay for a dorm room, just want to get your scholarship for tuition. That could be another option as well. Now, you graduated from Mississippi College 2018. Then you went to Reformed Theological Seminary, and got your master's in counseling, which is an unbelievable accomplishment. Just such a great program there. So tell us about that and how and what led you to pursue that. Because when people think seminary, they just think pastors. They just think music people, and there's so much more at seminaries and in these programs that are, first of all, really are needed and really need a diverse group to get into these fields.
Yeah. So I at MC, I did we had to have like a career paths class or whatever. And so I did that class, and someone came and spoke from RTS, because I didn't know RTS existed. Like, this is kind of like where I was. And then they talked about how it was close to like Mississippi College. And so it's actually it's moving now. So it'll be closer to like the hospitals in Jackson. And so she came, she talked about it, told us about the school. And so I was kind of looking into it, and I was like, okay, I want to be a counselor. I had already kind of talked to a counselor about it, and was a lady I knew that was a counselor. And so she was telling me about things. And so I was like, I think I want to take that route. And so I ended up applying. I took not a year fully, because RTS starts in the summer. And so I took like the school year off, and I worked to kind of make some money. And so then I started the program in June of that following year.
Now, and now you graduated from RTS and you're with Stand for Hope over there in Clinton. So talk a little bit about what Stand for Hope does and some of the different areas that you are working in as a counselor.
So we're technically called the Center for Children and Families, but it's the Southern Center for Children and Families. But Stand for Hope is kind of like our thing. But I am a family therapist, and so I do in-home counseling. So we have some that do school-based, so they're in the Clinton Public Schools. We have some that do assessment therapists, some that do like in-house therapy. Those are the licensed professional counselors. Right now, I am a provisionally licensed professional counselor. So I have a PLPC, and I also have a PCMHT. I can't remember what that one is, but it's some certified, I think it's provisional certified mental health therapist. And so I go into homes. My area technically is Madison County, which I really like, because that's where I'm from. And so I can service anyone in the Madison County area. Right now we do predominantly Medicaid, but we are branching out to service other healthcare providers. And so I go wherever the kids are, wherever the family is. I service anywhere from 3 to 21 years old.
Now, and the cool thing about this field is that, let's say you got burned out on that particular demographic. You could transfer your license and your abilities to a different demographic in a similar company. It's not like being a doctor where you're locked into a specialty for your entire career.
Yeah, so I could do more like I could do some more training to do like a specific field area of like counseling, but I wouldn't just only see them. Because even right now, like kids are they're my client, but I work with the whole family. So like I always joke and I was like, I kind of see people from 3 to like 73, you know, like because there's so many different people that I'm having to work with and talk with, and to just to be able to help the kid. But also sometimes the parents have some things that they need to talk about and they need to work through to be able to help that child thrive in the best way possible.
Yeah, and that's a great segue to what I want to talk about next. And one thing that I think is important, because you said the word mental health when it comes to certification. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that mental health issues does not mean you're crazy. It does not mean you're dangerous. It does not mean you're sick.
Mm-mm.
It does not mean that you are weird. It does not mean that it's not happened to everybody else. There are so and I'm not a mental health expert, and I even know that. But I think it's important for especially these kids getting ready to go to college, getting ready to be seniors in high school, to understand that not only are mental health obstacles extremely normal, but there are even more resources now to get through these issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I one of the things that I kind of like to think about like counseling as is like it can be a way for you to be proactive instead of reactive. Because there is so many things happening in the world around us. And I'm like, we saw a spike during COVID. Like there was so many people who wanted to seek counseling services during that time because they realized like there was so many things out of their control. And that's when it gets so overwhelming for us, is when so many things are out of our control. And it wasn't people that was like, you know, like with serious like mental health disorders. It was just like normal people, you know, that we would be like moms and dads who are like, well, you know, like I've been sitting at home every day with my kids and I'm like, it's just too much. I need someone to kind of talk to. Like the world is crumbling around me, you know, all the like, you know, brutality, police brutality, like, you know, all the you know, sicknesses and people dying, you couldn't bury your family, you know, like it was so many things happening and people just need to talk. Like we were created for a community, for relationships with other people. And so many times we forget that. We think that we're an island on our own and it's not. Like we need other people. And so as a counselor, like it's our job to kind of step in and be that, you know, in a way to kind of like help people talk through things, figure out things. But also as a counselor, like we go to counseling because we're taking on so many things from other people that we can't talk about. Like I can't go to my family and be like, oh my gosh, this happened today. You know, like this is something that's like really hard. And there's some things that I hear that is really hard. And so like I need somebody that is bound by confidentiality too, that I can like kind of offload and talk about so that they can take care of me.
Yeah, and a big thing for me, and I know it's kind of moving away, but for a long time in minority communities, there was a stigma of um, uh, we don't get sick, we don't get depressed, we don't get upset, we don't experience anxiety. But that is so false. It is the ultimate equalizer, and it does not discriminate. And another thing you see is everybody thinks of it as what they see on TV, as you know, only the rich people can go to these therapists and lay on the couch and talk about their issues. But there are all kinds of resources. College campuses have free mental health services. Even if you don't want to go to college, a lot of companies as a benefit package will provide you with mental health services. Reformed Theological Seminary has a very discounted counseling center for people that are training, that you can go for next to nothing based on your income. So I think it's important for everybody to understand that there are resources to help you get through these times, and it is perfectly okay and perfectly normal.
Yeah. And I think one thing, because I always tell people too, it's like you do need to take that step. If like you believe that you do need some help. And the beauty of what's going on now in the world because of COVID, like so many people have opened up telehealth. And so I see some people like now, like just like what we're doing, like we're virtual. They don't have to leave their homes to be able to go and seek those services. And so I think that that is something too that like people need to realize is that like, yes, we have busy lives, like there are some people where it's like, they are going from one place to the next place to the next place. But it's like there is so much flexibility for people to work with you. And like you said, like I went to RTS and like I saw people for next to nothing. And it was very great. And it's like, yes, we're being trained, but our teachers have done it for years and they like worked with us one-on-one. So it wasn't like we were stepping in, not knowing what to do. But it's like we recorded our sessions and, we told our clients like they had to sign off on that. And like we would only keep it within house. And so we showed those and they kind of told us like, hey, next time maybe you need to work on this. This is kind of what's going on. And so we were able to kind of get that more like one-on-one training, which was really good. But it's not for one specific group of people. Like everybody, we are all connected, and so it's like we all are experiencing things in the world, and especially as like a minority, there is so much trauma that goes back way back, and so we're still bearing that now. And so we really need to like reach out and seek that help if we need to. And Psychology Today is like a great way to go because like you may not know anyone that's a counselor and you're like, well, who do I even go to? You can go on Psychology Today, pick out whatever insurance you have, and you can like go and look at the biographies of these people to see what they specialize in, see if you even like them, and kind of reach out. And they'll kind of set up something for you to figure out if y'all are a good fit.
Yeah. Now, and another big thing is too, is there is, like every other field, there's a big push for diversity in this field. So, obviously you're a great example of that, but there is a huge need for more female counselors. There's a huge need for more Black counselors because, sometimes people feel more comfortable talking to people that look like them, and that's just a fact. So, what type of trends and diversity have you seen in this field, and why is there such a need to continue to grow that?
So one of the things I've noticed is there is a need for males,
Wow.
and minorities.
Wow.
Counseling is a big female field. Like there's a lot of women. Like in my office, we have 3 guys. That's it.
Wow.
And one is African American, 2 are white. And so like that's it. And whenever people come and like go for a job interview, it's typically women that are stepping in. And so we really need, minorities, people who, and then especially people who speak different languages. Like that is something I'm realizing is so needed too, because there are people who need help, but like if we can't speak the language, then that is a big barrier. Because you can only go so far with somebody translating. It takes away a lot. And so that is also something that like I think is very needed as we kind of move forward.
Yeah, and another thing that I've come to realize too, I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot about this. There's a huge need for sign language in these fields. I never, you don't realize how many hearing impaired people there are until you work in the public.
Yeah.
They have, and I can only imagine the frustration that hearing impaired people go through to have to communicate with people. So being able to communicate on that level would also be an invaluable skill.
Yeah. And one of the things um I've heard was like people want you to speak in their heart language, like what actually is their native tongue. And so it's like, that's why when I work with little kids, like it's mainly play. Like I bring toys because like their language isn't speaking, even though they speak English, like that's not their first language. Their first language is play. And so I have to speak their language. There are some teenagers I work with that like, yes, they speak English, but how I connect with them is through art. So we draw, we color, we do whatever they need. Like we listen to music, like it's trying to figure out what does that person need to be able to be met And that's what we do. Like, we meet them where they are. We don't try to ask them to come to us or to change, but it's like, we need to meet them where they are. And so that's kind of also with, like, you know, needing the languages stuff. It's also like needing to figure out, for people who do speak your language, like what really speaks to them and speaks to their heart.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, because we talked about, you know, if you have some of these issues, it's completely normal. Things, you know, nobody can choose who their family is. So
Mm.
you can't choose anything as far as family history. You can't really control family trauma, especially as a child. You know, and I'm be 100% transparent. One of the biggest triggers for me mentally was when I had to live through Hurricane Katrina. And when I was in grad school at LSU, I couldn't get in touch with my family. I had pneumonia. I couldn't find a doctor. It was without a doubt one of the biggest stressors I've ever had in my life. Everything that I
Yeah.
dealt with was 100% out of my control, and it was
Mm.
completely overwhelming. And I think that's important, you know, because people say, well, people are going to make fun of me. People aren't going to be able to listen to me. And you'd be shocked that, you know, before you came on, I was telling these kids that I can guarantee you somebody's dealt with something that you've dealt with before. And if you talk to somebody, I can promise you they're gonna have a solution.
Mm. There is strength in vulnerability. It's hard. And I'm like, you to put yourself out there is a very vulnerable place to be. And you cannot be met, you know, and that hurts. Like, that really hurts. But it is worth it, you know, like you said, you know, for them to be able to find someone that can meet them where they are, to kind of go through it with them, to help them and be like, hey, I've been through this. I can help you walk through this. I have skills that I can give you. And it's not just a counselor, like, you know, like, you can speak with your parents. Like, parents have been through some things, you know, grandparents especially, you know, they know some stuff. And I know as a teen, it's like, oh my gosh, you don't know anything. But it's like, I know now, I'm like, one of my closest friends is like 60, you know, like, and I speak with her, I talk with her, and she's in a different stage of life, but it's like, she has so much to give, so much to offer, to help me as I'm kind of going through my own journey, in this life. And so we really do need to just reach out and, like, ask somebody for help when we need it.
Absolutely. Well, I do have some questions from the students, and these are all juniors. This first one
Okay.
is Celeria Chesser, and she asked, as a counselor, have you ever had a situation where you didn't know what to say or what advice to give?
Yeah. Always. For sure. We don't know everything. And the beauty is, like, I am a student of my client. So I am trying to learn who they are, what they need. And sometimes I don't hit right. Like, I'll say something and it won't land, and they're like, especially teens, like, y'all will let me know. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Like, you know, what did you want? What did you need there? You know? But I'm not one, as a counselor, we don't give advice. And I know that's kind of the big thing. It's like, everybody thinks that the counselor sits down with you and tells you exactly what to do. That is not my job. Like, because first thing, you know, people are going to do is be like, well, you told me to do this and it didn't work. And it's like, that's why we don't tell you what to do. We help you figure out what you think is in your best interest. And we kind of go from there. If it doesn't work, then we go back to the drawing board. We kind of figure out what might be, you know, best for you to do next. But you get to decide.
That's awesome. Now here's a good one. This is Frederick Johnson. He asked, what do you think are the main focuses of mental health in the Black community to help them overcome the obstacles?
Main focuses to help them overcome obstacles. I mean, I just think that we need awareness, you know, like, it needs to be known that it is okay. Like, that it is okay for us to ask for help. It does not mean that you are not strong. It does not mean that you can't take care of your family. And I know, like, that is something too that I have seen, especially because like I said, I work with low income families most of the time. And so it is that thought of like, okay, if I seek for help, then like somebody is going to take my kids away from me. They're going to come into my home and they're going to see that like, maybe we're like struggling right here. But that is not the job of the therapist, is to take away your kids or your family. Like, but our job is like, if we see these things, then we can connect you to resources, to other avenues where we can like help you to grow. And so I think that like just education is the biggest thing that we need to focus on, and kind of lowering that stigma that like, that is bad or you're crazy or whatever. Like, you're just a human. Like, that's all.
Absolutely. Here's a good one. This is Carl Wilson, and he asked, as a therapist, have you had to do, how do you deal with other people's problems and stay motivated?
How do I deal with other people's problems and stay motivated? So my faith is a big part of everything that I do. And so even before I got here, like, I am one that I spend time daily with the Lord, like in his word. And I have to just like I have to rest. But also like one of the big things is I have had to learn how to hold boundaries with people. And that is one of my biggest words. Like, I love boundaries. And so just like today, like I don't work on Fridays. If I work, it's paperwork. So I sit at my house. I don't schedule a kid on Friday unless it is like a crisis situation. So like if one of my kids are in crisis, they know, like they can reach out to me whenever. But I don't work on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. Like I don't work on the weekends. I don't work on Fridays. And so that is kind of a way that I hold myself, be able to like care for myself. So I get to wake up late and I get to kind of like take my day slow. But like I said, also like counseling, doing counseling myself. And also I just went and did like a spa with some friends because I was like, I need it and I got to take care of me. So it's kind of like just doing things that take care of my own self, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-care is healthcare. This is Harmony Williams, and she asked, what were your main factors in deciding on a college?
My main factors in deciding on a college. I might not be the best person to ask this question because I am not a person that's like, oh my gosh, this is my 5-year plan. I'm gonna take each day as it comes to me. And so I guess the biggest factor was finances. Like I kind of thought like, like I said, I went to Hines because I was like, I didn't know first off what I was gonna major in. And so I was like, I don't want to pay a bunch of money for nothing. Ended up realizing that like, I mean, I wouldn't have had to pay anything anyway, but it is what it is. Life goes on. But I know this wasn't for me. And like, I do want y'all to hear this. You do not worry about the money. Like, taking out loans is not a big deal. Like, and I wish somebody would have told me that, like, because grad school, I still had to pay for grad school. And I had to take out a loan. And I was like, I kind of felt defeated almost. It was like, man, like you couldn't work hard enough to get this. And now that I'm out, I'm like, bruh, that stuff is gonna get paid off. Like once you get a job, once you start working, you got to go through the grunt work first. Like that's real. But it's like it's gonna get paid off at some point, and it's fine. Like there are so many people in this world that are like have loans, are in debt. Like it's fine, and it's not the end of the world. Like do what you want. Like if you want to go to school, go to school. Like major in whatever you want to major in.
Yeah, and especially in your field, if it's a field where it's needed to have their credentials, then absolutely you have to do what you need to do in order to have those credentials in order to advance in the career. I definitely agree with that statement because now where we get it's tricky is when people are going to college when they really didn't need to. That's when the unnecessary debt comes. But
yes,
in your case, absolutely, your field is going to require those credentials. And it was great. It was a great idea for you in your situation. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, I am one, I always tell people, I'm like, college ain't for everybody. Like sometimes, like a trade is awesome. Like there was when I was at Hines, people were doing trade school, and I was like, man, like I wish I was passionate about these things. Cause like some people went to school for 9 months and they was out making money. And I was like, oh, I'm like stuck here for like 6 years, you know? And so, but it was like that wasn't what I was passionate about. And so
Absolutely.
you have to know what you're passionate about, and that's what you go for. Do not let anybody tell you, oh, well, you need to go and you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to, you know, it's like, no, like you figure out what is going to get you up in the morning, what is going to motivate you to like go out there and work. Because like once you're working, like that is your life. And so it's like make it a good one.
Absolutely. Now, I just got one more from the students. This is Danoa Thompson, and he asked, "What drove you to major in psychology?"
What drove me to major in psychology? So it was a it was a precursor to counseling. But I mean, I kind of realized that like, I mean, I could have majored in anything and then went to school for counseling. I just needed a bachelor's degree. But psychology really laid the groundwork for counseling. Also, I think the mind of a person is very fascinating. Like
Absolutely.
to think about why we think and why we do what we do amazes me. Like, even in my own family, like I look at my sisters and my brothers and I'm like, why did you think to do that? Like, you know, and it's like, it's not that it was wrong.
And
It's
none of
just like,
y'all are
I
alike.
wouldn't have thought that way, you know,
Look
like,
alike, but none of y'all act alike.
exactly. I'm like, we look alike, but we are different people, you know, like my brother going to school for computer science. I would have never, I'm like, how does your brain get to that point where that is fascinating to you? Like, it's fascinating to me, but I'm like, I cannot put that together.
Yeah,
And so it's just really cool to me, you know, to be able to like see and like think about those things.
absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time out of your off day to be with us. But before we go, I think it's important. You were walking these same hallways, sitting in these same classrooms, in the same community with a few of these same teachers, and had the same type of obstacles growing up that these kids have now. But yet you are a great example of not only a great alumni, but such a great professional in a field where more great young people are needed. So with these kids at Velma Jackson coming out of the same situation or a similar situation that you've come out of in a similar surrounding in high school, what can they do to follow in the footsteps of great alumni like yourself?
Well, one of the things I would say is keep going. Like there were some days where I was kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want to go after here. Um, and it's like you don't have to have all the answers. And especially as a junior, like I mean, you have time to kind of look and figure out like what brings you joy. And even if it's video games, like you figure out what can you do with that. Because one of my friends, her son went to, what was it, Southern Miss, one of the schools, and he did like virtual like football or something like that and got a scholarship for it, you know. And so it was like there is so many things that you guys do that you love, and it's like figure out how you can make it work for you. And I think that is one of the biggest things that I've kind of had to learn. It's like we all have passions, and so it's like we need to figure out how we can make that work for us because it is needed. Like if you're passionate about it, somebody else is too. And so just trying to figure that out. But also enjoy your time there. Like high school can be rough. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like it can be real rough. But enjoy it, you know, while you have it.
Absolutely. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us. We are so proud to call you an alumni of Velma Jackson. It is just amazing all the great work you do here and continue to do. And hopefully next year we can get you on campus to talk about some of the stuff with our junior and senior class because it's just so important to understand the realities of mental well-being for every high school kid. So thank you again so much, Kalaishi Johnson, 2014 Velma Jackson alumni, member of the Velma Jackson Hall of Fame. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Bye y'all.
Talk to you later, buddy.